Hello there, my amazing crypto friends, and welcome back to another episode of TA with MK. My name is MK. Today's episode is going to be short and brief, just going to give you guys a quick stock update as far as the SPX or the S&P 500, as well as the S&P 500 mini futures. It's Sunday here in the United States, so obviously the traditional stocks are closed, so we're waiting and kind of getting an idea of what's potentially could happen to start next week or to start tomorrow, and that should give us a better idea of how we want to trade Bitcoin and our altcoins. So we're just going to quickly update you on that for today, and then I'm also going to go watch the new Jurassic Park tonight with my wife, so I'll let you guys know how that goes in tomorrow's video. Obviously, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to give away anything, but I'll just let you know if I liked it or didn't like it. Now, if you guys are liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's go. It's TA with MK. It's TA with MK. Alright, so we'll just quickly pick up where we left off on Friday's video, where we mentioned the SPX as it was closing for the weekend, had covered this gap. I mentioned this in that video that I made a couple days ago, that we had these overhead gaps that were created by when price action closed for the day and when it opened after the futures, which is the after hours or pre-market trading. And if it doesn't go back up to fill that gap, you just have these little gaps that are created. And there's a couple overhead. As we were flirting down here with, we lost this trend line, right? And we came down here, and then this became basically a bear trap because it was able to get back inside the pattern this past week, right? We mentioned that it did cover this gap that was right here, and that, you know, starting this next week, we'd be looking for it to potentially cover this next gap up here as well. And so that's kind of what we'll be looking for. Now, could there be some resistance? I'm going to show you on the ES1 chart, or the S&P mini futures chart that I showed you guys the other day, that it will be opening at resistance. So yes, that is highly likely that that could happen. You do also have a little bit of resistance back here and here. I don't think these are major areas of resistance, but obviously this overhead area that I have a horizontal line drawn, that'll be the first area. So yeah, could we open up, immediately hit that, and then come back down? Yes, in fact, that would be what I would expect. But, you know, as of recently, I have no problem admitting that the price action has not always been doing what I expect. And, you know, and that's fine. You know, all we do is we wait for it to do what it's going to do, and then we react to it. That's why I don't try to make predictions. But it is, at this point, it's got, I would imagine that it's a little bit overbought. At least on the lower time frames, maybe not on the upper time frames, of course, because it's been beaten down for so long. But you know, you go to the 1 hour, the 4 hour time frames and zoom in, and I'm sure there's room for some of those indicators to cool off a bit. So would a pullback maybe back to flip this key area that we spoke about as support? Could that make sense? Of course it could. Come back, flip this as support, and then maybe make a run higher at that point to cover this gap. We're going to hop over to this next chart, which is the ES1, which is the S&P E-mini futures. This trades a Monday through basically Friday morning in the United States. But the nice thing is during the week, it is 24/7, so you can sometimes use it to kind of front run the price action for Bitcoin. Not all the time, of course, but since they're so highly correlated, this is almost, I'm starting to find this is almost even better than the SPX, obviously. SPX gives me a bigger overall picture of what's maybe going on in the market, and then I can use the S&P minis to kind of zoom in and maybe predict, you know, more moves to come sooner than later, right? And so we mentioned that the other day that we were in this large symmetrical triangle potentially, or what would be more what people were probably talking about would have been this potential inverse head and shoulders, right? I did the measured move for both, and that's where I come up with this green box area. Now, we're not there yet. This is the 4 hour chart. We'll also have the 200 EMA, which is the blue one, and the 200 SMA, which is the yellow one. Overhead resistance as well coming up, and those are right by each other. But you also have this resistance back here where this was, you know, this whole time it was support. It obviously wicked below it a few times. In fact, to me, this layer right here is going to be more the area of support, which was resistance, but we were able to break through it right here, right? So what could make sense? You know, again, this is also, if we double click and look at some of the indicators, our RSI is getting up here at the 74 range. You know, 80 is considered to be oversold. Can it go higher? Of course it can. But, you know, you start to think about the idea that something can go sideways or potentially have a small retrace once it starts getting to these levels. Our stochastic down here also looks like it wants to maybe curl and roll over. Could it do something similar that it did back here where it was up there for a long time as this still continued to push higher? Yes, of course. But I guess what I'm getting at is between the two charts, the SPX and the S&P mini, could it make sense for the you know, traditional stocks to maybe have a slight retrace to begin Monday, which is tomorrow. It's Sunday here right now in the United States, but could it make sense for a small retrace back to maybe this level? that's basically acted as support on 3 or 4 different occasions, sure, you know, and then at that point we flip it. Could it go even lower with a wick or something, kind of like this here, to go back and, you know, flip this major area that was previously resistance on 1, you know, 2, 3, 4 occasions? Could that make sense as well? Sure. You know, I guess what I'm getting at is a retrace could be healthy, could make some sense. I do think that overall we should see a push higher with stocks and Bitcoin potentially over the next week or two. But just like in a downtrend, there's always potential, you know, retraces. Same thing if we begin an uptrend, there's going to also be potential retraces as well, right? Price action never goes one direction the entire time. So if we do push up to begin, that could also make sense. I would just think at that point we would hit our measure move and then potentially roll over and retest. So we could either see something like that, you know, one of these two scenarios, or scenario 2 to me would be the one I spoke about first, where maybe we just retrace right away, you know, to one of these levels and then bounce, right? That could also make sense. So right now, I'm not trying to make any predictions. These are just what I'll be looking for as stocks open tomorrow to determine when I want to open positions, because I don't want to open positions at overhead resistance, right? And right now, we're entering a zone of overhead resistance. So what we're looking for to open positions is either a break, you know, and a flip of this area to, you know, open a position, or ideally we're looking for it to come back down here somewhere and, you know, either this level here or this level here. And you could do both. You could DCA a little bit here on some altcoins and here on some altcoins. And in tomorrow's video, I'll mention a little bit more about Bitcoin dominance and why I think altcoins should perform pretty well in the month of July. So just keep an eye out for those couple of scenarios. And that will be all for today. Like I was mentioning for the last several videos on the channel, now's the time to start making your plan. You know, for the potential of a decent July. Now, will there not be some retraces in between, maybe even some volatility over the next 24 hours? Of course. Welcome to trading stocks and especially trading crypto. That's just part of the game. So you always need to be prepared for that, but get a plan together and let's get ready to potentially make some money this next month. And as always, if you guys are liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe. We'll catch you tomorrow. It's T-A